talk about it failing and always putting the square peg into the round hole. We're going to run it. We're going to try and play these lower scoring games. They didn't score over 17 points in the 5 straight losses.
There's a chance for the Ravens to exercise every single demon on their way to a Super Bowl. But it also means the path is very difficult and things are only getting started.
Pro Football Today, only on SportsGrid.
Jimmy Butler wants to leave because Jimmy Butler knows that Riles isn't going to pay him, and he wants to get paid. Simply put, if they would have given Jimmy Butler this contract extension in the summer when he asked, this wouldn't be happening. But Riles did it, and Riles wanted him to play. So now he's disgruntled because he wants out.
Betting above the rim, only on SportsGrid.
Your gut says Miami is going to win, and you should take the over. Your gut also said your NFT selfies would only go up in value. They didn't. But your head is on SportsGrid and knows the QB is in concussion protocol. The backup has a 45 QBR against the zone coverage. The New York D has the most sacks in the league. So yeah, trust your head. It's smarter to be on SportsGrid.
There is going to be an energy to game time decisions that you will feel night in and night out. We're going to go through every single thing, and I've got a great team behind me that's going to help me get the job done. I want this to be the place that people come to. We are going to hit every single one of those markets that you need to know about. There is not going to be a better place, I promise you, than game time decisions. We will have everything at our disposal, and we will use that to our advantage. I'm Kevin Walsh. Tune into Game Time Decisions from 6 to 8 p.m. Eastern on
Good morning. Welcome to NewsWire here on SportsGrid, our midweek edition of the show. As we creep closer to the NFL playoffs, we'll have a preview coming up of the Kansas City Chiefs and Houston Texans, so stay on the grid for that. It's the first game of the NFL playoffs this weekend. Also, Michael DeCourcy will join us here on the show to recap some of the things we saw on the hardwood in college basketball last night. We'll also get a preview of a couple of games tonight as well. In addition, Simon Applebaum will be with us from the podcast tomorrow. Will be televised with the latest media news, notes, and information, and also Sam McQuillan from Legal Sports Report as well. So that's the rundown here for the show today. Let's get to the latest in our news world of sports as we do it here on SportsGrid on NewsWire. Let's start with a story from the WNBA that, generally you never want to see or hear about, but there's a man that definitely has some major issues. 55 years old gentleman from Texas has been charged with a felony with stalking Caitlin Clark. He was in court, and his first statement was basically immediately, I saw the video, saying that he did it. Sending hundreds of text messages and sexually charged messages on Twitter, traveled to an Indianapolis hotel before being arrested, and also Caitlin Clark fearful for her safety in public appearances. You would never know after the season that Caitlin Clark had last year, but looks like this has been at least put to rest for the time being as this man faces some serious charges as well. The National Basketball Association, Jimmy Butler's team-imposed suspension is coming to a close, but what happens next is anybody's guess. Right now, ESPN is reporting that Butler still would like to be traded, despite having an option for next year that would pay him $52 million for next season. Right now, he is suspended for what they're calling detrimental conduct, which ends tomorrow. So that opens up the window for him to play this weekend. But as of right now, the Heat has not traded him, or at least they have not found a trade partner for him. And the saga continues with another team and the same player. That, of course, is Jimmy Butler. The NFL is headed to Berlin, Germany, and the Indianapolis Colts are one of the teams that are going to be playing in it. This will be a game that is played next season. Also, the Cleveland Browns announced they're promoting Tommy Rees, a former Notre Dame quarterback, to offensive coordinator. Deontay Johnson's time has come to an end in Houston after a very short stint. He's been waived from the Houston Texans. Meanwhile, Mike Tomlin held his end-of-the-year press conference yesterday. It would appear as though the Steelers have quarterback questions to answer this offseason with both Russell Wilson and Justin Fields as free agents. Tomlin discussed the possibility of having to address that in the offseason pretty quickly.
You know, obviously, we don't have a quarterback under contract, and so we got some major discussions there. It was a really good experience with the 3 quarterbacks that were on our roster this year, individually and collectively. We certainly are open to considering those guys, but there's a lot of work ahead of us. And the major work, obviously, starts first and foremost with just understanding what our options are, what the field looks like in terms of free agency, what the draft pool looks like, and then beginning the process in terms of decision-making based on, known variables. And so, Omar and I have got a half a day carved out here this week just to begin that component of the discussion.
Free agency will begin, and the Steelers will have to address that. No question about that. All right, looks like the transfer portal is changing yet again in college football. This time it would appear for the better. They're going to try to incorporate a single 10-day period in January where players can hit the portal and opt out to keep the integrity of bowl season and also put guardrails on a system that coaches say is broken. And they had a convention and basically saying that these dates could potentially be from January 2nd through the 12th, and that would be starting for the academic year. Of course, this will have to be voted on as well. Meanwhile, one college quarterback that has played for 7 seasons in college football. That's right, you heard me, 7. His name is Cam Rising of Utah. You may have heard his name here on this show many times. Looks like he's not going to be back at Utah for one more season, which would be his final season of college eligibility, although we have no idea what he's going to do. Is he headed to the pros, or it would appear maybe go through the portal and go to another school? His head coach, Kyle Whittingham, says that decision has to be made by Rising, and he's not willing to share it yet.
I've talked to Cam a few times, but that is really up to Cam to divulge that when he wants to divulge what his plan is. But we've certainly had communication, and you don't see him on our roster right now, so that's can tell you some things right there. But I would leave that up to Cam to outline exactly what his plan is. It's almost a complete makeover. Isaac is the only scholarship quarterback that's returning. He tested the waters, the portal waters, determined that he wanted to be here when all was said and done, so we were excited that he decided to return. Devin Dampier obviously is a big addition for us, coming from New Mexico, same place obviously that our coordinator came from, and so knows the offense inside and out. And we have 3 other QBs that scholarship QBs we've added to the room, and so we feel like we're in good shape. Now that being said, we felt like we're in good shape last year and ended up being on our 5th guy by the end of the season. So
we'll find out which way Utah decides to go, and it will also get an update on Rising, I'm sure, in the coming days. Meanwhile, Matthew Sluka, who said that he didn't get the payments that he was supposed to get at UNLV, has decided to transfer. He is headed to James Madison University. He'll play for them next season. And also Texas lineman Cameron Williams has opted to enter the NFL draft. He is a tackle and a true junior. In college basketball last night, the on-court outcome wasn't as, I would say, interesting. I don't know if that's fair to say, as to what happened off the court, because needless to say, you can't have crime happening in a parking lot while a game is going on, but that's exactly what happened in the game last night between Michigan and Washington. 24 vehicles, this is right, 24 vehicles at a high school parking lot had their windows smashed and were broken into during the basketball game, which was in Ann Arbor, right next to Michigan. Police said that this occurred, and damage was reported to 27 vehicles. How did they not get any of this on camera? How did they not stop any of this from happening? I have no idea. All right, in college basketball on the court last night, Malik Diaz scored 23 points. Mississippi beats number 4 Alabama by a final of 74-64. Head coach of the Crimson Tide, Nate Oates, said basically the team was not all in from the beginning of the game.
I got to figure out how to do a better job making sure our guys are ready to go. Our first 10 possessions, we had 7 turnovers. We've been having some issues with turnovers throughout the year. This defense turns people over, and we didn't have our guys ready to go and not turn it over. And then maybe the most disappointing thing of the night, in my opinion, was our lack of effort on the offensive glass. I don't know if our guys didn't realize that's what's been keeping our offense going. we haven't been shooting it particularly well. We've had too many turnovers. Our offense hasn't been great this year, but the offensive rebounding rate's been really saving us in some of these games. And I believe the one offensive rebound in the first half on the box score, I believe, was given to Jaren on the missed dunk. I think they gave him a missed field goal, offensive rebound, turnover.
Tough night for the Crimson Tide. Same for the Florida Gators. 10.5-point favorites over Missouri. They lose outright. Final 83-82. The Gators had won 16 straight games in Gainesville at home. They end up losing this one. Also, number 3 Duke beats Miami by a lot, 89-54. Cooper Flagg had 13 points in the game, and the Hurricanes have lost 6 straight games with their new head coach after Jim Larrañaga stepped down. Meanwhile, in the NBA last night, Cleveland Cavaliers, they get it back going. Donovan Mitchell, 35 points, 127-117 the final, so they avenged their loss over the weekend. Shai Gilgeous-Alexander, 32 points. The Thunder beat the 76ers 118-102. By the way, Embiid did not play. Maxey did not play. Paul George did not play in this game as well. And also Jamal Murray had 45 points last night. The Nuggets beat the Mavericks 118-99. Giannis with a triple-double. Bucks win in Sacramento, final 130-115. Coming up next, the Crimson Tide lose. A top 5 team again in the top 25 goes down in the SEC. Michael DeCourcy will join us next. We'll recap some of what we saw in the hardwood last night. Don't go away.
Jimmy Butler wants to leave because Jimmy Butler knows that Riles isn't going to pay him, and he wants to get paid. Simply put, if they would have given Jimmy Butler this contract extension in the summer when he asked, this wouldn't be happening. But Riles did it, and Riles wanted him to play. So now he's disgruntled because he wants out.
Betting above the rim. Only on SportsGrid.
Anyone that's been to a sporting event, the atmosphere before a game, I think Game Time Decisions has that same exact atmosphere. This is our arena. This is what we do. There is going to be an energy to Game Time Decisions that you will feel night in and night out. The excitement you get when you lock your bets in, when you're figuring out what you want to do, we can zone in on the biggest games each night. I want this to be the place that people come to before the game starts so they feel as ready as possible to lock in their cards. We are going to hit every single one of those markets that you need to know about. We're going to go through every single thing, and I've got a great team behind me that's going to help me get the job done. There is not going to be a better place, I promise you, than Game Time Decisions to get that new information, react to it, and be able to then bet accordingly. We will have everything at our disposal, and we will use that to our advantage. I'm Kevin Walsh. Tune into Game Time Decisions from 6 to 8 p.m. Eastern on SportsGrid.
Talk about it failing and always putting the square peg into the round hole. We're going to run it. We're going to try and play these lower scoring games. They didn't score over 17 points in the 5 straight losses.
There's a chance for the Ravens to exercise every single demon on their way to a Super Bowl. But it also means the path is very difficult and things are only getting started.
Pro Football Today, only on SportsGrid.
Welcome back to NewsWire. Michael DeCourcy is here with us from Sporting News. Big upsets last night in the Southeastern Conference. Let's get right to it, Mike. Thanks again for coming on the show. Let's start off with the University of Alabama. They go down. Let's begin with them. Was that a surprise to you seeing this last night?
Oh, stunning. Because it was a home game. Ole Miss is certainly a capable team. And if the game had been in Mississippi at Oxford, no surprise, because a lot of significant SEC teams are going to win most of their home games. But Alabama, coming off a terrific performance over the weekend against Texas A&M, there was a game more to their liking, but Ole Miss made it into a ground a ground game kind of affair. And what they really did was a great defensive job on the backcourt. LeBaron Philon and Mark Sears from Alabama, a combined, I believe, 2 of 16 from the field, 1 of 7 from 3. You're not going to beat very many teams in that league shooting the basketball like that. And Mark Sears is an All-America candidate, and Ole Miss completely shut him down. And I think Ole Miss maybe felt like everybody would want to play that up and down. Alabama felt everybody's going to want to play that up and down game, but Ole Miss cannot do that in this league. They have to grind it, and so you have to be prepared for that. And it didn't look like the Alabama players were mentally prepared for that style of game.
Yeah, and that would be the outcome yesterday. I mean, look, sometimes this is going to happen in the SEC. The teams are so competitive. But Malik Dia had a huge game, 23 points, 19 rebounds, 11 for 21 from the field. Also 2 blocks, a player to watch as the season continues. Meanwhile, the Gators have been fantastic this season, and 16 straight games in a row won at home. I mean, that's a big number, Mike, but that number goes down yesterday too. One of the bigger upsets of the college basketball season, 10.5-point favorites. They lose outright yesterday to Missouri. This is a huge surprise, again, in the SEC, and it just goes to show you on any given night, anybody can win in this conference.
Yeah, and again, a road game. Mizzou is a very capable team. They showed that in a terrific home performance over the weekend against Vanderbilt. Going on the road to the O-Dome where Florida had been so dominant. I mean, remember, this only, a week ago, 10 days ago, that Tennessee went in there and lost by 30. They carried the number 1 ranking. I'm not big on the rankings, but usually a number 1 team isn't going in and losing by 30 anywhere unless they wander into like the Lakers gym or something like that. To lose that game that badly, and then for Mizzou to follow in and take out the Gators, pretty impressive. And what really was surprising was it was a day on which Walter Clayton played pretty well. It wasn't super efficient shooting, but pretty well, scored 28 points. But the Tigers were able to control Alex Condon inside, and being able to do that, which would have, if you asked me going into the game, which player was less likely to have a great game against the Tigers, I would have said that it was Clayton because he plays on the perimeter, and that's where most of Missouri's strength is. But they did a great job ganging up on Condon and holding him to single figures.
All right, so a big game for Missouri yesterday knocks the Gators down in the SEC. They fall to 2-2 in the conference, 15-2 overall. Auburn still at the top after their easy win last night. They're now 16-1 on the season. Alabama takes the hit, of course. Ole Miss wins. There are the Gators. We'll get to Tennessee in a minute. Mississippi and Georgia round out the top 7. And that is a prelude to tonight's game in Knoxville, Mike. We're going to see the Georgia Bulldogs, who are ranked. Couldn't believe that they hadn't been ranked in like a decade or so. I mean, what am I missing here? I mean, I forgot how bad the Georgia basketball program has been. We know Tennessee is great. Do the Bulldogs have a shot tonight? I see a very low total here, by the way, 133.5.
Yeah, that's the nature of Tennessee when they're at their best. Again, somewhat similar to Ole Miss. They just make it difficult for you to play, not fun for you to play. They're getting big crowds now in Knoxville. The community's really excited about these Vols. And Georgia, Mike White has done a really nice job with the program. Couldn't really ever quite get Florida going full speed. But he's a fine coach, a very good coach. And usually when you hire somebody else's coach that they don't really want and you take them off their hands, it's not a recipe for success. But Mike's gotten it done here. He's done a really nice job with this team, brought in some excellent recruits. They defend really well. They're better offensively than maybe people realize. I think it's going to be a tough night for them to do well at Tennessee. But after what happened last night with Auburn managing to blow out a significant opponent without their best player, and then the 2 road wins that happened, I've given up predicting this league. Who knows?
Yeah, can't predict another huge upset tonight. That would be 11.5-point dogs tonight. The Dogs, no pun intended. All right, Hunter Dickinson on the court tonight, so it's much-watched basketball. Number 9, Kansas, takes on number 2, Iowa State. And the Cyclones have climbed all the way up, as we see here, to one of the top teams in the country. They're 5.5-point favorites and a much higher total than the previous game we just reviewed, 144.5 tonight in Ames. Who do you like in this one?
Well, I like Iowa State playing at home, the energy they'll get from the Hilton Magic. I think that the question is, can Iowa State keep the ball out of Hunter Dickinson's hands, or can they get him into a situation where when Hunter touches it, he's not in dangerous spots? That's the key for Iowa State. Hunter Dickinson, 7'1" center who has great offensive ability, inside, mid-range, sometimes deep. He's got the entire package, except he can be convinced on the right night to not want to play. We've seen it on many occasions where you can get him disengaged. And that's Iowa State's job tonight. Maybe you do a little bit of that if you're the Cyclones by taking the ball away from the perimeter. Certainly not going to do it to DeJuan Harris at the point, but maybe some of the wing players will give it up. But the key here is to make it a miserable night for Hunter Dickinson. If he can dominate inside, that's the one guy that they don't have a one-for-one matchup with at Iowa State. So that's got to be Kansas's job to try to make it all about Hunter Dickinson in the mid-range and the low post.
And if it happens and maybe Kansas pulls off the upset tonight, we keep seeing the number 1 and number 2 team go down consistently each week. We'll see if that happens tonight with the number 2 team on the court this evening. Thanks again, Mike, for coming on the show. Really appreciate it. We'll catch up again next week.
Thanks, Greg.
All right, Michael DeCourcy here with us. Now, coming up next, we've got our very own Joe Lisi weighing in on the first game of the NFL playoffs this weekend, divisional round. Kansas City taking on Houston. We'll have a preview of that. Also hear from Patrick Mahomes on the layoff that the Chiefs have had, almost a month off in between games. We'll be right back with more NewsWire next.
Jimmy Butler wants to leave because Jimmy Butler knows that Riles isn't going to pay him, and he wants to get paid. Simply put, if they would have given Jimmy Butler this contract extension in the summer when he asked, this wouldn't be happening. But Riles did it, and Riles wanted him to play. So now he's disgruntled because he wants out.
Betting above the rim. Only on SportsGrid.
Anyone that's been to a sporting event, the atmosphere before a game, I think Game Time Decisions has that same exact atmosphere. This is our arena. This is what we do. There is going to be an energy to Game Time Decisions that you will feel night in and night out. The excitement you get when you lock your bets and when you're figuring out what you want to do, we can zone in on the biggest games each night. I want this to be the place that people come to before the game starts so they feel as ready as possible to lock in their cards. We are going to hit every single one of those markets that you need to know about. We're going to go through every single thing, and I've got a great team behind me that's going to help me get the job done. There is not going to be a better place, I promise you, than Game Time Decisions to get that new information, react to it, and be able to then bet accordingly. We will have everything at our disposal, and we will use that to our advantage. I'm Kevin Walsh. Tune into Game Time Decisions from 6 to 8 p.m. Eastern on SportsGrid.
Talk about it failing and always putting the square peg into the round hole. We're going to run it. We're going to try and play these lower scoring games. They didn't score over 17 points in the 5 straight losses.
There's a chance for the Ravens to exercise every single demon on their way to a Super Bowl. But it also means the path is very difficult and things are only getting started.
Pro Football Today, only on SportsGrid.
Welcome back to NewsWire here on SportsGrid. Houston Texans and Saturday afternoon playoff football. They go hand in hand. We're going to get another dose of that coming up this weekend. We're going to preview the game and also hear from Patrick Mahomes. It's time now for the SportsGrid Sound Off. I think we kind of know who the Houston Texans are by now. We've seen them the last couple of years. We've seen them make the playoffs the last couple of years, and we saw them play very well against the Chargers last weekend. But the question kind of revolves around the Kansas City Chiefs, who are now vying for a 3rd straight Super Bowl. Will the Chiefs win and cover in this matchup? Let's check in with our very own Joe Lisi. He's got a preview of the game.
The AFC divisional playoffs start this coming Saturday in a rematch between the Kansas City Chiefs and the Houston Texans. 3 weeks ago, we saw Kansas City dominate the Texans at home 27-19. Kansas City covered as a 4-point favorite. The total did go over the 42.5 in regards to that last matchup. Now we see Kansas City coming off a bye, 7.5-point home favorites. Total is 41.5. We saw Houston step up as a home underdog last week against Justin Herbert and the LA Chargers. CJ Stroud had a dynamic performance, 282 yards through the air, 1 touchdown, 1 interception. Nico Collins with 100 yards receiving did score a touchdown as well. They're going to need that type of effort going up against one of the top defenses in the AFC in terms of Kansas City. Early on, I'm taking the points with Houston. I think they're live. They got the kinks out in terms of their week 1 matchup against the LA Chargers. Expect Houston to bring it this coming weekend. Now, Craig, back to you.
All right, thanks, Joe. And for the most part, the Chiefs have not been a covering machine at all this season, so stands to reason maybe Houston has a shot. DeMeco Ryans, head coach of the Texans, ready for this matchup after the win last week, knows exactly what's in store with Patrick Mahomes. And by the way, a different quarterback than Justin Herbert last week, as he expects at least Mahomes to take off on the ground.
Whenever you're tasked with playing, you call it 11-on-11 football with a quarterback who is able to run the ball, it just presents different challenges. Like you have to be sticky in coverage. You have to plaster. That's the thing. You think you cover guys once and the play is still going on, and you have to look to cover them twice. So guys have to be very disciplined when you're playing in coverage versus Mahomes, because we know his escapability and not just him running the ball, but also the threat of the run and him still being able to keep his eyes downfield and make passes. Guys are wide open a lot on their film, right, because of the threat that he poses, and he just requires so much attention because he's such a elusive guy in the pocket. He's such a unique playmaker with the different angles and the way he can throw the football, the way he gets the ball out, whether it's underarm, sidearm, however he wants to get it out. He has the confidence to get the ball to his playmakers.
Yeah, and Mahomes will be the central focus of this game, as will the Kansas City Chiefs. Remember, they have not played in almost a month, so will that rust show up in the first round of the divisional playoffs? Mahomes says that they have actually been practicing and simulating or emulating a lot of the games despite not being on the field.
Nothing that I would not normally do, I guess would be the best way to say it. I just kind of continue to work as far as working in the building, working at practice like I usually do. Obviously, the reps are a little bit different, but at the same time, you can get mental reps and you can get physical reps on the side. And so continue to work with those guys that weren't playing in that last Denver game, and then preparing your body to go out there and execute in the playoffs.
I know it was an unusual game you guys had against the Broncos, the people out there and all that stuff. Is there any fear at all that just kind of the down part of that hangover, or is that an easy one to flush for their organization?
Yeah, I mean, obviously it didn't go the way we wanted to. I mean, we wanted to win the game, and obviously didn't do that. And so we've had some time now that you kind of come back and you get ready to play. I mean, this is the playoffs now. This is where you want to be at, and you're going up against a great football team, and it's going to take your best effort to win it.
It seems like in the final stretch of the season, you were getting rid of the ball quickly. How much of that was an emphasis, and how much do you want to carry that maybe potentially into the playoffs?
Yeah, I think just going up against great defenses, you got to get the ball out of your hand and let guys make plays. And we have a lot of talented guys that can make plays after the catch. And so get the ball out of my hand, let the guys make a positive play, and then move on to the next one. I mean, that's what you do in the playoffs.
Saturday afternoon, we have all of the action in our in-game live coverage for the divisional round of the NFL playoffs. Meanwhile, one quick potential coaching note: the Dallas Cowboys are starting their interview process to replace Mike McCarthy. NFL Network is reporting that former Jets head coach Robert Saleh will interview with the Cowboys this week. We'll take a quick time out here on NewsWire. When we come back, Sam McQuillan joins us and will tell us, hopefully, when the state of Missouri, who have legalized sports betting, will get it going online. You're watching NewsWire on SportsGrid, and we'll be right back. Don't go away.
Jimmy Butler wants to leave because Jimmy Butler knows that Riles isn't going to pay him and he wants to get paid. Simply put, if they would have given Jimmy Butler this contract extension in the summer when he asked, this wouldn't be happening. But Riles did it, and Riles wanted him to play. So now he's disgruntled because he wants out.
Betting above the rim. Only on SportsGrid.
Anyone that's been to a sporting event, the atmosphere before a game, I think Game Time Decisions has that same exact atmosphere. This is our arena. This is what we do. There is going to be an energy to Game Time Decisions that you will feel night in and night out. The excitement you get when you lock your bets in, when you're figuring out what you want to do, we can zone in on the biggest games each night. I want this to be the place that people come to before the games start so they feel as ready as possible to lock in their cards. We are going to hit every single one of those markets that you need to know about. We're going to go through every single thing, and I've got a great team behind me that's going to help me get the job done. There is not going to be a better place, I promise you, than Game Time Decisions to get that new information, react to it, and be able to then bet accordingly. We will have everything at our disposal, and we will use that to our advantage. I'm Kevin Walsh. Tune into Game Time Decisions from 6 to 8 p.m. Eastern on SportsGrid.
Talk about it failing and always putting the square peg into the round hole. We're going to run it. We're going to try and play these lower scoring games. They didn't score over 17 points in the 5 straight losses.
There's a chance for the Ravens to exercise every single demon on their way to a Super Bowl. But it also means the path is very difficult and things are only getting started.
Pro Football Today. Only on SportsGrid.
Welcome back to the NewsWire here on SportsGrid. Let's get back to some of the top stories right now going in the world of sports. It's what we do every day here on the show. Let's begin with the rematch between Cleveland and Indiana in the NBA last night. You may remember that Indiana snapped Cleveland's 16-game winning streak, and that came to an end over the weekend. But Cleveland rebounded and definitely came up very big in their win yesterday. So they end Indiana's 6-game winning streak, and the final score in that one was 127-117. So the Cavaliers clearly get back on track, and their head coach Kenny Atkinson talked after the game about what a playoff team and a team that could make a deep run in the playoffs will do after they lose a tough one. They come back stronger.
As a playoff type response, you get knocked in the teeth, punched in the mouth, and we responded. Won the possession game, which we talked about. I think 14 offensive rebounds in the second half. But really, Donovan set the tone. It was one of those nights where he wasn't going to let us lose. You knew that. I knew it from shoot around. Guys were locked in and responded really, really well.
Feels like the next big story in the NBA is not going to be one on the court, but off the court. In fact, as we speak right now, the Miami Heat are meeting with the media, at least the players that are currently with the team right now, and discussing what the future may hold with or without Jimmy Butler. ESPN, by the way, yesterday reported that over the past, I suppose it was the past week or so, it couldn't have been yesterday, that Jimmy Butler has still stuck to his trade request. And ESPN also reported that Butler had met with the president of basketball operations, Pat Riley, reiterating that request. Now, for those of you who are unfamiliar with his contract situation, Butler can opt into a $52 million, you heard that right, folks, $52 million player option, biggest I think that we've ever heard in the NBA for next season, 25-26, and that could basically operate as a trade maneuver for him. There have been a lot of teams that are mentioned in rumors with Butler, so it would be really silly for us to go through all of them. But Mark Stein, one of the latest to report that the Milwaukee Bucks could potentially have some interest. Now, the issue that the Heat face here is that his 7-game suspension is up this week, and so he would potentially return to face the Denver Nuggets coming up this weekend. The former world champions are in the house from 2 years ago in Miami. Will Butler be back on the court? still remains to be seen as the saga still continues, and we'll follow it for you. But, to speculate on all different teams is not something we generally do here on the show. We give you facts. Let's get to some more facts in the National Football League. We'll start off with a game coming up internationally next year as they head now to Berlin, Germany. That's the site of the next game. Yeah, they're going all over the place. And we don't know what the matchup is going to be, but this historic first-time matchup is going to be in the form of the Indianapolis Colts being one of the two teams that will play in this upcoming game. In addition, the Cleveland Browns are promoting Tommy Rees, former Notre Dame quarterback. He's going to be their offensive coordinator. Deontay Johnson is now out with the Houston Texans. He's been cut by the Panthers, the Steelers, the Ravens, and the Texans this season. So get ready, I guess, for training camp next year. I would imagine Deontay Johnson will hook up with a job. But for the time being, right now, his time in Houston or in the playoffs is over. Meanwhile, the playoffs were over very quickly for the Pittsburgh Steelers. Mike Tomlin meeting with the media yesterday, talking about the issues that they've had trying to figure out who their starting quarterback will be. Well, let's take it even a step further. As Tomlin talked about, none of the quarterbacks that played for the Steelers this season are even under contract for next year. So Tomlin and the front office saying they have to get together and figure out which direction they will go.
Obviously, we don't have a quarterback under contract, and so we got some major discussions there. It was a really good experience with the three quarterbacks that were on our roster this year, individually and collectively. We certainly are open to considering those guys, but there's a lot of work ahead of us. And the major work, obviously, starts first and foremost with just understanding what our options are, what the field looks like in terms of free agency, what the draft pool looks like, and then beginning the process in terms of decision-making based on, known variables. And so, Omar and I have got a half a day carved out here this week just to begin that component of the discussion.
Quarterback. And I would say some of the offensive line issues for the Steelers, something that they're going to have to work on, running the ball a little bit better, and a quarterback as well. One quarterback who the Steelers may be able to consider next season is Quinn Ewers. Breaking news from college football as Pete Thamel is reporting that Ewers will leave the University of Texas and not go to another school. He potentially could have transferred, but he's not going to do that. He's entering the NFL draft. Ewers not expected to be among the top two quarterbacks taken first. Those, of course, would be Sanders and Ward, or Ward and Sanders, depending on the order. But no transfer portal for Quinn Ewers. Arch Manning will start at quarterback for Texas moving forward. And instead of transferring, breaking news, Quinn Ewers will head to the NFL draft in April. Meanwhile, the transfer portal is going to be opened and closed a little bit faster than what we're used to. In fact, there's going to be a vote coming from FBS to determine whether or not they want to shorten the transfer portal window. Instead of having this thing open 3 different times during the year, here are the dates of the window. January 2nd through the 12th for the 2025-26 academic season. That would eliminate the portal windows in both December and April, and essentially will now move to the NCAA Oversight Committee and ultimately the NCAA Division I Council for final approval. And by the way, this is all from being guaranteed. Meanwhile, one quarterback who's looking for a new destination is Cam Rising. His 7th season has been completed at the University of Utah, and apparently it will be his final one. But not in college football. With the millions of dollars that are going around in the NIL, it looks like Rising would rather take that money as opposed to transfer to a new team, although we don't know which team because Kyle Whittingham isn't ready to tell us.
I've talked to Cam a few times, but that is really up to Cam to divulge that when he wants to divulge what his plan is. But we've certainly had communication, and you don't see him on our roster right now, so that's can tell you some things right there. But I would leave that up to Cam to outline exactly what his plan is. It's almost a complete makeover. Isaac is the only scholarship quarterback that's returning. He tested the waters, the portal waters, determined that he wanted to be here when all was said and done, so we were excited that he decided to return. Devin Dampier obviously is a big addition for us, coming from New Mexico, same place obviously that our coordinator came from, and so knows the offense inside and out. And we have 3 other QBs scholarship QBs we've added to the room. And so we feel like we're in good shape. Now, that being said, we felt like we're in good shape last year and ended up being on our fifth guy by the end of the season. So
I think right now Utah's looking for a new quarterback. And, of course, when we find out where Rising is going, we will tell you. Do you remember the story earlier in the college football season? UNLV, undefeated, quarterback Matthew Sluka playing at a high level. All of a sudden, story comes out that he didn't get paid the NIL money that he was asking for. UNLV denying that they even offered him any money. Bizarre story. Needless to say, he's transferring and has made his destination known. He's headed to James Madison University. They're now in Division I college football. Also, Texas lineman Cameron Williams has opted out. He's entering the NFL draft. 6'5", 335 pounds, a true junior coming into his own in the National Football League, potentially next season. All right, if you want to download the SportsGrid app, we can tell you all about our new programming and everything going on in the world of sports. In fact, we got a great show coming up for you at the top of the hour and a lot of new data and process for our golf coverage here at SportsGrid. Just take out your phone and download the SportsGrid app by scanning the QR code that's right there on your screen. It is the SportsGrid app. It is available right now for iOS and Android, especially in time for the big tournament this weekend. The American Express is up on deck. You know who else is on deck? Simon Applebaum of the podcast Tomorrow will be televised. We've got viewership numbers in from NFL Wildcard Weekend. And what do we make of this disillusion of venue sports? Talk so much about it being a game changer. Instead, it's not even going to launch. We'll tell you more about that next.
Jimmy Butler wants to leave because Jimmy Butler knows that Riles isn't going to pay him, and he wants to get paid. Simply put, if they would have given Jimmy Butler this contract extension in the summer when he asked, this wouldn't be happening. But Riles did it, and Riles wanted him to play. So now he's disgruntled because he wants out.
Betting above the rim, only on SportsGrid.
Anyone that's been to a sporting event, the atmosphere before a game, I think Game Time Decisions has that same exact atmosphere. This is our arena. This is what we do. There is going to be an energy to Game Time Decisions that you will feel night in and night out. The excitement you get when you lock your bets in, when you're figuring out what you want to do, we can zone in on the biggest games each night. I want this to be the place that people come to before the games start so they feel as ready as possible to lock in their cards. We are going to hit every single one of those markets that you need to know about. We're going to go through every single thing, and I've got a great team behind me that's going to help me get the job done. There is not going to be a better place, I promise you, than Game Time Decisions to get that new information, react to it, and be able to then bet accordingly. We will have everything at our disposal, and we will use that to our advantage. I'm Kevin Walsh. Tune into Game Time Decisions from 6 to 8 p.m. Eastern on SportsGrid.
Talk about it failing and always putting the square peg into the round hole. We're going to run it. We're going to try and play these lower scoring games. They didn't score over 17 points in the 5 straight losses.
There's a chance for the Ravens to exercise every single demon on their way to a Super Bowl. But it also means the path is very difficult and things are only getting started.
Pro Football Today, only on SportsGrid.
All right, we got Simon Applebaum here with us, so the podcast tomorrow will be televised. Simon has some information on what happened with this venue sports bundle that we were talked so much about. I feel like, Simon, we're never going to get that time back in our lives because it's not going to happen. We'll get to that. We'll also get to NFL's Wild Card Weekend. I think that's a good place to start, Simon, although I think the big story from the NFL is going to be this game coming up Sunday night. I think that when you're back next week here on the show, I think we're looking at the highest rated non-Super Bowl game of all time coming this week with Buffalo and Baltimore.
I think you're right. That matchup is going to be incredible. And let's not forget also that the night after, we have the college football national championship with Ohio State and Notre Dame, which, by the way, I think Notre Dame is going to win it. And the key is Riley Leonard. If Riley Leonard can do what he's been doing all season long into the playoffs, I think Notre Dame's going to win it. But I think there's going to be some matchup.
All right, well, we'll see. Simon, 9.5 point dogs there. Notre Dame are 8.5 points. All right, so let's start off with Wild Card Weekend. We get that juicy Houston Texans game every week. Every year we got it again on Saturday. How did they perform, and how did the rest of the game show in terms of ratings? Because let's be honest, that Sunday night game was great, Simon. The rest of the games were not all that compelling.
You're absolutely right, and I think blowouts did figure in the totals. We so far have half the numbers in, and believe it or not, the number one game so far of Wild Card Weekend was the Sunday afternoon game on Fox, which had 32 million, about 35 million people watching the game. That was down 11%, by the way, from the game they had last Wild Card Weekend, but still it was the number one game so far of the weekend. Believe it or not, the number three was not what you think. It's the NBC game. It was the Washington-Tampa Bay game, which had the incredible doink field goal at the end. Despite the fact that it was probably the most competitive game of the weekend, it only had something like 22 million people watching. Now, that's just NBC alone. When you throw in Peacock, another 3 million, so it's like 25, 26 million people watching. However, it was down 19% from the wild card weekend on Sunday night that NBC and Peacock had. The big interesting story to me, I think, was the Prime Video game, Baltimore and Pittsburgh. Despite the fact it was the super blowout of the whole weekend, it had 22 million people watching. That's the best Prime Video has done with an NFL game. And it was only 1 million below what Peacock did with their exclusive game last year. So I think the NFL may be taking this thing, you know what? Maybe give another wild card weekend game or a divisional playoff game next season to a mega content service like Prime Video or Peacock or maybe even Netflix, given what they did with the Christmas Day game. So bottom line, Fox was number one, Peacock number 3, and Prime Video number 2. We still don't know what happened with the CBS games in the afternoon on both Saturday and Sunday. We don't know what happened with the Knicks game. We don't know what's happened with the Monday night's game on ESPN. By the way, I did watch both the CBS regular telecast on Saturday afternoon with Ian Eagle calling the play-by-play and the Knicks game. The Knicks game was good. Nate Burleson basically had to do both play-by-play and color commentary up against the characters from SpongeBob SquarePants. And I'll tell you, you did miss Noah Eagle. He really brought a lot to those Knicks games. But Nate, I think, did a very, very good job in terms of trying to handle both functions, play-by-play and color commentary.
What's funny is Simon's talking. I thought he was talking about the Knicks. I was like, what is Simon talking about here on the show? He's Nickelodeon. He was referring to. I'm like, why is Simon going over the Knicks on this segment? I have no idea. Now I understand. Okay. All right. So 2 sports services that this has been the story of bundles. Everybody's trying to bundle different packages and new streaming services. And so one is out and one is in. So this Venue Sports that we heard so much about for the past 6 months, they're going to launch, they're going to change the game with all these new sports streaming services. They have decided to just bag it. I can't imagine how the executives of that company must feel just not even getting this off the ground. But it must have had something to do with this new DirecTV service as well. I mean, this can't be a coincidence that the day that Venue says they're not going to launch, the next day DirecTV comes out and says they're launching this My Sports package. So can we tie these two together? What ended up happening here?
Well, what ended up happening is when we were last on the air, it looked like Fubo and the Disney deal that was on Monday morning made it clear the way for Venue to do their thing. However, then DirecTV came along, and then Dish Network came along. They said, you know what? We're going to maybe put a legal suit on Venue to stop them from launching. And they were trying to launch around Super Bowl time. Then, on top of that, you also had Venue's partners saying, you know what? It's not worth it to launch because we have our own fish to fry. When it comes to ESPN, the mega content service that they finally started to talk about last Wednesday night at CES in Las Vegas, you also had Warner Bros. Discovery in its own troubles. You know, we're losing the NBA after this summer. What do we do to replace it? And then you have Fox sort of figuring out how do we want to play the whole mega content game. So you have all 3 of the partners saying, you know what? It's not worth it. We got fish to fry. So let's just cut while we can. I'm sure that Pete Distad, the head of Venue, who came over from Hulu, came over from Apple TV, he's very disappointed. So was the crew that was put together starting a year ago to make this happen. However, it did open the door, as you said, for DirecTV now to launch its own sports package called My Sports, 40 sports channels, plus broadcast stations in New York City and LA and so forth. By the way, we should point out, a little disclosure and disclaimer that in addition to getting those channels, they'll also get the sports channels on my free sports DirecTV, which includes SportsGrid Network. And in addition, we understand that DirecTV is that the sports package will be the first of a set of genre packages, lifestyle, kids, family, that they're going to offer to customers who don't want the whole DirecTV package. So keep your eye on what My Sports does with DirecTV.
All right, so now we go from DirecTV, and we can now get to the Nick game, so to speak. All right, so MSG, and look, a lot of these regionals, Simon, it's a really complicated situation with these, cord pullers at this point, cord cutters. MSG, clearly still around here, and there's negotiations. One of the really prime commodities that's left at this point, especially for these regionals, are the live sports. Well, they have the Knicks. And MSG Networks and Optimum are at a standstill right now. They're not even negotiating. And you hate to see this sort of thing, but this is just more in line of what we've seen in the past and what we're going to see in the future. If you don't want to pay for live sports, these regional companies who are, a lot of them, in trouble, I wonder how MSG feels that they're going to operate without this.
Well, I'll tell you what, MSG has been without Optimum as one of the two main affiliates, Spectrum being the other, in the New York metro area for now a month and about a half a month. And if they don't get this deal done with Optimum, they may fold up for good. Remember that MSG is in a 3 regional sports network town with SNY and Yes Network. So if they don't make a deal with Optimum, they may be done for. And by the way, it's not the only Optimum situation with carriage. Next Star Station with WPX here in New York and News Nation also out the door.
Yeah, imagine 10 years ago, Simon, you and I having a conversation about MSG not being part of viewership. Crazy times have changed. Simon, thanks again for coming on NewsWire. We'll catch up next week.
You got it, Craig. Take care.
We'll be right back.
Jimmy Butler wants to leave because Jimmy Butler knows that Riles isn't going to pay him, and he wants to get paid. Simply put, if they would have given Jimmy Butler this contract extension in the summer when he asked, this wouldn't be happening. But Riles did it, and Riles wanted him to play. So now he's disgruntled because he wants out.
Betting above the rim, only on SportsGrid.
Anyone that's been to a sporting event, the atmosphere before a game, I think Game Time Decisions has that same exact atmosphere. This is our arena. This is what we do. There is going to be an energy to Game Time Decisions that you will feel night in and night out. The excitement you get when you lock your bets in, when you're figuring out what you want to do, we can zone in on the biggest games each night. I want this to be the place that people come to before the games start so they feel as ready as possible to lock in their cards. We are going to hit every single one of those markets that you need to know about. We're going to go through every single thing, and I've got a great team behind me that's going to help me get the job done. There is not going to be a better place, I promise you, than Game Time Decisions to get that new information, react to it, and be able to then bet accordingly. We will have everything at our disposal, and we will use that to our advantage. I'm Kevin Walsh. Tune into Game Time Decisions from 6 to 8 p.m. Eastern on SportsGrid.
Talk about it failing and always putting the square peg into the round hole. We're going to run it. We're going to try and play these lower scoring games. They didn't score over 17 points in the 5 straight losses.
There's a chance for the Ravens to exercise every single demon on their way to a Super Bowl. But it also means the path is very difficult and things are only getting started.
Pro Football Today, only on SportsGrid.
Welcome back to NewsWire here on SportsGrid. We're going to get into fans in the National Football League and also a little bit of news on TCU. Nice story from their women's college basketball team coming to a close today, and also somebody saving a life from the Olympics. What does this all mean? You're going to have to stick around for the next, let's say, 5 or so minutes and find out. It's time now for Last Licks. Okay, I had never heard this name before, but I have a feeling I'll never forget this name ever again. Bruno Lobo, okay? This is this gentleman's name wearing that nice yellow coat here. Bruno Lobo is an Olympic kite surfer, whatever that is. I know what kite surfing is. I did not know it was available in the Olympics. But apparently Bruno was training in the water or just simply doing some kite surfing and stumbled upon a person in the water who was struggling to live. This is correct, to stay alive, like drowning in the water. And Bruno to the rescue. It was reported that he ended up saving this person, and the Olympiad ended up being a hero, so to speak, in the water here. You never know what you're going to see in this. Living here in South Florida, I've seen this all the time. People like to go out too far in the ocean. They really don't know how strong it is, how strong the current is, but it's very rare that you're going to have an Olympic kite surfer save your life. And indeed, that is what happened over the weekend. So we try to end the story with some good stories if we can. I know we always make an effort toward leaving you with something positive, and if we have to throw the negative in, I know that sells. Negative sells, I get it. But on this show, we try to end, if we can, on a positive note, although this next story is not going to be all that positive. So, Frank, I don't know if we put this in the right order or not, but good job, Bruno Lobo. Okay, now, bad job by this fan in Philadelphia. Now, the Philadelphia fans are generally known as being a little obnoxious, being a little difficult, sometimes being a little rowdy. Now, I had personal experience with that 2 years ago. As I traveled, I took my family. We went to see the Marlins play in Philadelphia, Citizens Bank Park, and I don't think that there was a single Marlins fan in the crowd. It was okay. Where it didn't turn out to be a little razzing, but nothing out of the ordinary. I think you have to expect that if you're going to wear the opponent's jersey in their park, you're going to hear it a little bit. I mean, you have to expect that. But to what extreme are you allowed this to go? Well, this man who was in the stands in Philadelphia was absolutely harassing this poor woman and her husband who were sitting in the upper section. She was a fan of the Packers. He, of course, is a fan of the Eagles. And then naturally, when you use such vulgarities and you're going to yell at someone and you see somebody have a phone videoing it, the best thing that you can do is not do that or apologize for that. But instead, this guy was just going in on this woman constantly. Husband basically said he couldn't do anything about it. There's all these Eagles fans around. What was he going to do? Well, he ended up getting his way here because they found the fan. They found the name of the fan. And again, according to the internet, this fan worked at some company. They found his name. They ended up firing the guy. And he's banned from ever attending a game in Philadelphia ever again. So word to the wise here. There's just better ways to do this sort of stuff. And especially considering, and I'm going to say this clearly, the last fans that you want to harass are the Green Bay Packers fans. I've been to Green Bay, Wisconsin. I've been to Lambeau Field many times in my younger days covering the National Football League. These are the single best fans in all of sports and the easiest to get along with. If you're ever going to attend a game and expect hospitality, food, and a great time, there's no question it is in Green Bay, Wisconsin. Leave the Cheeseheads alone. They're good people. All right, finally, let's talk a little bit about Ella Hamlin. First time you'll probably ever hear her name. Let me tell you who she is. She's one of TCU, Texas Christian's under frogs, okay? Not horned frogs, but under frogs. What does that mean? These are students who joined the women's basketball team in January of last year to save their season. They had to use walk-on players to make it through the year. A year ago, Mark Campbell had open tryouts for the TCU student body after a series of injuries had a shortage of players. Well, 4 students who became known as the under frogs, the walk-ons, helped join the team, and TCU had a 21-12 season. On Tuesday night, Hamlin, the only member of that quartet, returned this season, and by the way, ending on a good note, was given a full scholarship to play at TCU. So well done there, and we do get to end the show on a good note. And that will do it for our program here today on Wednesday. Thanks again to Simon Applebaum of the podcast tomorrow will be televised. Thanks again to Michael DeCourcy, of course, of the Sporting News as well. And for my director, Luke, and my producer, Frank, I'm Craig Mish. Hope you enjoyed this edition of the show. We'll try and do a better one next day for you. That will be Thursday, tomorrow morning, 11 a.m. Eastern, right here on SportsGrid. So I hope you enjoy the rest of your night. Got college basketball ahead along with some NBA. And, of course, Smiley's Great Golf Show is coming your way in less than a minute. So stay tuned for that. I'll see you tomorrow.